welcome to episode 10 of the Tales of Crisis. And tonight I am joined by a special guest, Mr. Thomas Carrot. Tom, how are you?
I am very well, Martin. How are you?
I'm wonderful, thank you. Well, wonderful perhaps is a slight overstatement, but I'm alive and well. So
alive and well. That's what matters.
That's a start for me at the moment.
It is.
So apologies to listeners. It has been a long time coming. I can't remember exactly when episode 9 was, but it was a good couple of months ago. And we have been, I wouldn't say extremely busy, but we have done some events. And I've managed to do 3 events in that period. And they're literally the 3 days where I haven't been ill. Unfortunately, I've had a number of health issues, including quick trip to hospital for a couple of days, which was fun. So that is why this has been so delayed. But in that period, we did go down to Element Games for a Friday night event there, which we'll cover in another episode. We then did our normal monthly Bearded Card Trader event. I was unable to do the 50 plus player event at Element Games that Tony Moore had run on Halloween due to illness, which was I was quite gutted about because I was really looking forward to that one. So unfortunately, there's no coverage of that. However, we did, both Tom and I, along with Anth Poole, did manage to make the team tournament run by Rich from RichMid Gaming at Board and Swords in Derby. So tonight's episode is going to be covering that. And then, like I say, we'll do another episode with myself and Chalmers will be back for that one, where we'll cover the Friday night element and the Bearded Card Trader one. And then there's another Bearded Card Trader one coming up this weekend, but I don't think I'm going to be able to make that one, so we might not cover that at all. So that's a quick update as to where we've been and why it's been so long. So apologies that it has been so long. We'll hopefully get back to a regular cadence in the new year. A couple of things to cover before we get into the meat of this. First of all, a big shout out to the Bearded Card Trader. They've very recently done a raffle for charity. A number of charities basically all around saying no to racism. So big shout out to JP from Bearded Card Trader for running that. I know he's doing.
Well done, JP.
Yep, I know he's going to do the draw soon, and there's some fantastic bundles on there, all contributed to by himself. It's all stock from the shop that he's essentially bought himself, donated for this raffle, and all proceeds go to those charities. So well done to him. If you want to know more, go to the Bearded Card Trader website, and he's got a section on there around say no to racism. So I think that's worthy of a shout out.
Absolutely.
Secondly, as I'm sure most people are aware by now, we are playing version 1.5 of the game.
No.
1.2?
I hadn't heard.
I'm not really sure what we're classing it as. But yeah, we've had the updated rules. No, they've said this is the only time they're going to do the updates to character cards, but we'll see how that works out. I kind of feel like it's not really a big update because the majority of it are minor tweaks, but it's been an update that has covered a large sway of the game. Tom, what are your overall thoughts on the changes in general, how they impact you, good, bad, indifferent?
Well, first off, feeling at least a bit better for the time being. Hopefully, that's you past the worst of it.
Thank you.
Excited. New edition or whatever we're calling it, as you say. Definitely excited. And it's great that some different things have come to the front. Some things have gone back a bit. It's a really great time to be playing MCP. Unfortunately for me, I do dislike the change to crisis selection. For me, a very large part of the fun of the game, not a very large part, but a significant part of the fun of the game was that sort of build your own mission, the kind of the almost sort of mental chess that you play with your opponent of trying to do that. And I appreciate that maybe some people think that that's a bit of an unfair barrier to new players. Maybe it is. Probably is more so if you've got a new player playing a very experienced player, although in that case I would say it's on the experienced player to control themselves and try and give the new player a fun experience, rather than saying that we need to completely rewrite the rules to change that. For me, it does take away part of the tactics. I think it, in many ways, actually, I think it does punish new players a bit more, because you now want to have 3 of each crisis type that you are really good at. And I think that is, in many ways, part of the hardest part of the game to learn, is what affiliation does best and what crises, what crisis suits your playstyle best, all of that. But, it's changed, we get on with it, and I think it's still, a really fun game and a really tactical game. I do like the giving the non-priority player more sort of control over the game, with them choosing threat value, although I think it has definitely swung the pendulum the other way. I think the non-priority player definitely has the advantage now. Otherwise, I think, it's nice. It's just a nice sharpening up of the rules. I think it's really good. Character-wise, I do hope that this isn't the only time they ever update character cards. I do have some concerns to say about Asgard. And yeah, there's probably a whole new release of characters just around the corner that are going to solve all their problems for the time being. But I still think it'll be a bit of a shame if those really iconic characters, for Prince of Asgard,
Yeah, and I know where you're going with that one. I think you're right. You've got to allow for, we don't know what's around the corner. They do.
Absolutely.
They know better than we do. I very much agree with most of what you've said there. The way I was looking at it the other day, I was sat down thinking, now we knew all the rules, etc., and we've had a couple of games with it. I haven't had many games with new rules, but I've had a couple now. And I think MCP for me was in an amazing place before this. There were a couple of things that, didn't really like.
Mm-hmm.
They've made some changes. There are some changes that I don't like. I'll be honest. There's some changes I prefer they hadn't made, but they have. But overall, I think if you take them as a whole, they've improved the game.
Yeah.
And considering the game was amazing beforehand, I'm really excited for where we are now. I think you hit on Crisis. I totally agree. For me, you picked Crisis to counter other lists, and that's how I did it. But I appreciate at the same time other people did it with, I'm picking a Crisis. I've got this turn 1 play set up for that particular crisis into this. I know I can more or less win the game based on that. And I think that's the overall sense I got from the changes. Was it was an attack. This was mentioned on one of the other podcasts, and I can't remember. I think it was the Strike Better one. Apologies if it wasn't. But, attack on turn 1 plays. And it very much was. They did a lot of things to stop those turn 1, those ones where you could design your roster and your setup so that as long as you didn't discard one particular crisis, you were like, right.
Yeah.
You didn't auto win the game. I don't think it was ever that bad, but you were in a position where you were in a very strong position off turn 1, and they've done everything they can to remove that. Unfortunately, that means that we lose the tactical element of the crisis selection, which, for me personally was a shame. I would have preferred to have seen person with priority picks the crisis. Person without priority sees what they pick and picks into it.
Yeah, that would be good.
Which gives you that counter to, but I appreciate that they're trying to simplify the game and they're trying to make it easier for people to play. And the logic was, superheroes don't know what the crisis is until they get there. Fine, get that. So it's a slightly different game, but it's no fun nonetheless. It's going to be interesting to see how it works on a competitive scene, but as we know from other game systems, the competitive part of the world is only a small part of the world, and we have to appreciate that.
Absolutely. On those turn 1 plays, I am, in many ways, I think my biggest is that NG didn't make any effort to try and change the problematic crises or the problematic combos. I loved Panic, not because it was a bit broken, and as a defender/Black Order player, I was the one able to break it perhaps most. I loved it because it was 19 threat. I want to play with all my toys. I want 19, 20 threat crises.
Yeah.
And I think it's a shame that we've just banned it. And that's that. Rather than trying to maybe fix it and do a new card, I also think it's a bit of a shame that Virus hasn't had a new card with like the C rather than E printed as a bit of a caveat. To the side, sorry.
Yeah,
But
yeah. Yeah, that might be coming if they ever do a pack or anything.
Maybe.
But I was surprised the Crisis weren't touched, as in there weren't any updates to any of the Crisis. I thought they might have considered that, but again, you have to take that step back. And I don't disagree with anything you said. I am concerned about Asgard. Asgard is my number one, and I'm kind of, how do I play Asgard at the moment?
Yeah. And for me, it's even if the Warriors 3, Asgard, whatever, come out and even if they are the next broken thing, for me it's a real shame that for Prince of Asgard and Valkyrie and now Enchantress are kind of going to be these, and Hela certainly are going to be these characters where it's kind of like they're all right, but they're a bit dicey. And
I think again, one of the things that we've learned from Crisis Protocol is a change elsewhere can change a character completely.
Definitely.
Crossbones is the obvious example of everybody said Crossbones was a complete waste. Criminal Syndicate came along and wow, everybody loved him. Admittedly, I now run him a lot less in Criminal Syndicate. Now they've got other characters, and I think you do see him a lot less. But then they brought out Sin, and that then changed the dynamic as well.
Yeah.
So I've no doubt there could be a Team Tactics card that all of a sudden makes Thor amazing. There could be a Crisis that all of a sudden Asgard. There are things that can happen, and we just don't know in the future.
Yeah.
But snapshot now, I think Asgard and Defenders are in real tricky places.
And this is what I was about to say. As a primarily Black Order and Defenders makes me sad. Portals was our one thing. We've got a lot of very good characters, especially very good high threat characters, although also good free. And but that was our one thing. Our leadership, when I'm playing Defenders, I maybe use the leadership a couple of times a game. It makes me very sad that this one thing. I really hope that Defenders get some new affiliated Team Tactics cards ASAP, because at the minute, I'm just not quite sure why you would want to play Defenders.
Yeah, and
when you could play all those characters in Avengers.
Yes, there's that element to it. I think the thing with all of these is, I think if somebody wants to make an affiliation work, they can make it work. There was the player the other season who made Inhumans work and got them working. Unfortunately, it means you're probably not going to get to work the way you want it to work. And I think that's one of the things that I often see when people are, this affiliation's broken because I can't take all my favorite toys and win. Well, fine. You might have to just take a core of certain Defenders and then splash other things in to make it work. You might have to go a certain way to make it work. But it is what it is. But
exactly.
Overall, I think it's improved it. Would you say that is a fair,
Absolutely. And I do trust that Asgard, Defenders, potentially Brotherhood, they've had quite low win rates recently, and maybe the change to terrain throws might bring them down further. I do have confidence that all of those things are going to turn around Brotherhood, not least by Juggernaut. Juggernaut's going to be huge for them.
Yeah.
As a Black Order player, competitively, I love the changes. Ebony Moore, I find really convincing. I've had quite a few games with his new card now, and I really like him as that source of mystic attacks. It's just something different. Also, 10 tactics cards. I quite like having Ebony Moore and Corvus with a Follow Me in there. Who needs Proxima when you can just have Moore and then Corvus? Granted, it's only one round, but I quite like it. I think Corvus incredibly left-handed. I'm amazed that he took.
It was one of the shocks, wasn't it? I think we all expected Corvus to take either Corvus or the Reality Gem were going to take a hit, and it took a small hit, but he more or less came out unscathed.
Now, all my Black Order rosters are also Wakanda rosters for 14 and 15 threat, so I have absolutely no problems with where Black Order are. If anything, I'd be tempted to say they're actually a bit stronger than they were.
I think they have. I think they've come out of this stronger than they went into it. which I was a little bit surprised by.
Yeah.
But, again, I've got faith in it. It's given it all a shake-up. Web Warriors seem to be coming out before the shake-up on top. I think I didn't see anything that makes me think that that's going to change, to be honest. I think they're still probably the strongest once people get their heads around
absolutely.
it. But yeah, overall, massive tick from me. A plus. Well, probably A minus for AMG for this. Like, there were a couple of things I would have preferred done differently, but I'm sure everybody has that. But overall, absolutely brilliant. So before we started playing the new version, we did do a team event on the old version. So quick view on how the team event went. So I think there were 16 teams? Yes, 16 teams.
Yeah.
We had 3 players per team. The way that it went was, and I never really understood the difference between blue and red, or who. We rolled for priority as you normally would.
Yeah.
The team that won priority, I think, were red, and the other team were blue. It didn't really make any difference. Essentially, both teams picked one player, and they put it on opposite tables. So if you imagine the tables were numbered 1, 2, 3, with 1 on the left, 2 in the middle, 3 on the right, I, as the captain, would put my pick on table 3. My opponent's captain would put his pick on table 1. We'd turn those over and reveal what they were. And we did it. We didn't have cards per player, or most of us didn't. I know some printed them off. But what we essentially did was we picked a crisis card each to identify who it was. Then we went in a little huddle and we said, who wants to play against? So, on table 1, my opponent will have revealed it was player A from their team. So whoever we didn't put on table 3, we'd like, which of us wants to play into that? Fine. And then the other person went on to table 2. They did the same. They picked who they wanted to play on table 3, and the other one played on table 2, and we did it that way. There wasn't a lot of science behind it. One of the issues I had with it was, unfortunately, due to people dropping out, the lists were never locked down. We were planning in the week before the event to actually go through the lists and kind of do a bit of a color coordination and who did you want to play into, who did you want to avoid, so that when we went into it, there was a little bit more science behind it. To be fair, it was relatively chilled and nobody really took it that seriously, that element of the game. So I think it was, we didn't come across anybody that had done that, and therefore I didn't feel like we were at a particular disadvantage by that, but it still would have been nice to have been able to go into it and go, right, we're playing Team X, and you don't want to play against this. Tom, I know you don't want to play, we'd already, because often it was like, right, so who's on table 1? Oh, this is Bob, and he's playing X-Men. And that's all you knew. You didn't know what their crisis was, etc. So a couple of times we did pair people up, and then once we actually got into the detail, it was like, oh, actually, these crises are rubbish for me.
And that stung me last round, I think, a little bit, in that I ended up with Sam, oh, that's fine, I can do Sam. Sacrifice, sword, kind of all the bits, so...
Yeah. And that's just a small thing, and I think, we could have done that on the Saturday night if we'd really wanted to.
Yeah, we could have done.
But it would have been nice for all those lists to be locked down well in advance. Other than that, it was a
thank you, Rich, for running a really fun event. It was a really, really good day.
Yeah, it was at Board and Swords, which we've been down to a couple of times now. Really good place, nice venue. So well done to the people there. Well done to Rich for running the event, as you say. Really good event. He had a number of issues with Longshanks when he first started it. He froze and he basically had to create a secondary event and come around and do a load of stuff on spreadsheets to start with. So it was well done, Rich, for that. And I had a good chat with Rich at the end of one of my games because it finished early. And he was talking about doing further ones, and I'd definitely be up for other ones.
Absolutely.
So this was one of the things. We weren't allowed the same characters in any of the teams. We weren't allowed the same tactics cards, and we weren't allowed the same crisis cards. We basically, in fairness, when we came to do selection, we weren't that far off in comparison to what they were. So what did you take then, Tom?
So I was going Black Order. So for me, it was Phalos, Corvus, Proxima. Who else in Black Order, old rules? Then Baron Zemo, Loki, and Okoye. I got lucky and managed to somehow convince you and Ant that I needed Okoye more than you. So thank you for that. And then I ran the Mind, Power, Reality, and Time gems. Power only there in case I came across 16 threat, with not being able to sort of build in the flexibility of characters that you have taken. Tactics cards, I had All You've Got, Execute, Field Dressing, Follow Me, Grievous Wounds, Mothership, Inspiring Monologue, and 1-2 Punch. Definitely a few choices there influenced by the restrictions limit. But I mean, actually, cards like Inspiring Monologue, that I would never kind of normally think to take, they actually serve me pretty well. I'm not usually a field dressing player, or at least wasn't, because All You've Got is now banned. Wasn't a field dressing player of All You've Got in Black Order, because I was always quite happy if Corvus slips, because then you get more dice from Death Decree, but ran field dressing and it served me perfectly well for the event. Then Crisis, Alien Ship, Mystic Wakandan Herbs, Panic Grips City, Demons Downtown, Infinity Formula, and Intrusions Open Across City. So that was my roster.
Excellent. And I took Criminal Syndicate because that's what I've had the most experience with. I've been playing around with Midnight Suns lately, but I just thought it was too early to run them. So went with Criminal Syndicate and Kingpin, Omega Red, Mysterio, Black Cat, MODOK, Toad, Enchantress, Lizard, Taskmaster, and Hood. Slightly concerned I only had the 1-2 threat. Recently I've been running Toad and Okoye. Obviously couldn't do Okoye, and yeah, I was humming and hawing putting another 2 in, but just the way it fell, I felt we were better off with just the 1. Tactics cards, again, made a couple of sacrifices, but nothing major, to be honest, compared to what I normally run. I think with tactics cards I got more or less everything I wanted. All according to plan: Brace, Medpack, Climbing Gear, and then we had Grand Illusion, Shadow Org, Hood's Gang, and Bitter Rivals. Don't think I played Shadow Org or Hood's Gang all event, but the others definitely. And then extracts again, I got most of what I wanted. So I had Gamma, Marefisk, and Terrigen Clouds. And then we had for Secures, Deadly Legacy, Research Station, and Struggle for the Cube. So Anth is normally a Web Warriors player, and he was doing Web Warriors, and then he changed his mind. Then he changed his mind again.
And again, I think.
And then he changed his mind again. So he ended up doing X-Men, and I totally support his logic behind doing it. We were never trying to win the overall tournament, so he said he wanted just to have a play around with X-Men. That's absolutely fine. So he went with Beast, Cable, Cyclops, Domino, Jean Grey, Magneto, Mystique, Rocket Raccoon, Storm, and Wolverine. He had Advanced R&D, Blind Obsession, Deception, Disarm, First Class, Mental Domination, No Matter the Cost, and To Me, My X-Men. And then he went with Fear, Grips World, Spider Infected, Montesi Formula, and then Deadly Meteors, Infinity Formula, and Portals Overrun City with Spider People. We felt pretty good going into it. We had a relatively balanced set. As I say, Criminal Syndicate, Black Order, X-Men, nice variety there. So overall, quite happy with it. But as I say, no intentions of winning the thing outright. We all went down on the Friday night and stayed in the Travel Lodge by the cricket ground, which is, not bad. Recommend it for anybody going down to Boards and Swords that isn't local and then needs to stay overnight. It's a nice little place. Got up in the morning, went across, and game 1 we played against Goldfish. We went into that one, and I'll be honest, I cannot remember who got put down where and when, but I can tell you.
I remember that we threw me out first.
We did that on a number of them, so that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
I played against James Lovejank Mooring. You got Michael Killer Pending Lemos, and Anth got Ben Salmon. So James was running Web Warriors, Michael was running X-Men, and Ben was running Convocation, I believe. My game against James was a really close game in the end, it was a bit weird in that it could have gone one way or the other. We were playing Research Station, so I picked Research Station. He picked Cosmic Invasion, kind of down the middle, but also a D. So it was a little bit odd to try and work out what the best way around it was. I stuck Toad up the right to try and get secure on the right hand side. I kept a few back to secure the back objective, and then we fought over the middle research, and nobody went up on my left in the first turn, so it ended 2-3 to James. Then they still ignored the left. I didn't put anybody there, and he didn't put anybody there. It became apparent that it was all about the researcher. And I think on this one, I was able to push some people away with my Enchantress. Sorry, so I ran Enchantress, Kingpin, Mysterio, Taskmaster, and Toad. And James was running Ghost Spider, Miles, Venom, Enchantress, and Okoye. I was able to move Okoye out into nowhere, but I think from memory that he was able to get a number of really good beams off with his Enchantress. I think basically the top and bottom was he played his Enchantress better than me. End of turn 2, it was 5-4, so I was up from that perspective. So doing okay at that point, but I think it was turn 3. So at the end of turn 3, I didn't score any points, and he was able to score 6 points. So he got the researcher and a couple of other key pieces. He was able to take out my Enchantress. I think that was the key piece. Took out Toad as well. So I was left with just the three at that point, so Kingpin, Taskmaster, and Mysterio, and I hadn't taken out anybody on his side. I think did we run out of time on that one? Yes, we ran out of time on that one. So it finished 10-5. I'd say it was a really close one. I was up until that last turn, but it was just the way it was. It was just one of those games that was super tight. Every decision had a really large impact. I think I played Grand Illusion a little bit too late. Some of my tactics cards probably weren't picked at the best of times. But overall, really good game. So I lost that one. How did yours go, Tom?
It was a really fun game. Michael was a newer player, and well done to him. His first event. I think he did a great job. I won 19-4, which it was a closer game than it kind of looked until I think towards sort of the round 3 was a big swing, and also my dice spiked. I'm not talking Corvus. I'm talking Anos, Proxima, and Okoye. They all just rolled really hot for the whole game. I had priority. We played Intrusions, Open Across City, and Research Station at 19 fret. So that for me was Thanos with Time and Mind, Corvus of Reality, Proxima, and Okoye. And Michael ran Storm, Medusa, Beast, Wolverine, Domino, and Black Widow, Corset Black Widow. I basically just played at the center. Kind of thought, well, I'll just ignore the 2 portals on either flank. Which did definitely allow me to kind of focus my kills down the middle. He had Medusa, Beast, and Storm in the middle. He had, if I remember rightly, it was Wolverine and Widow on one flank and Domino on the other. Round 1, he moved Storm up quite early. Didn't really move her up, but moved her up just that bit too far where Thanos was able to pull her in. So round 1, Storm was dazed by Corvus. And top of round 2, Corvus KO Storm. And this is where my dice spiked, was able to also daze Medusa and Beast in that one turn. I think before Medusa activated, Beast did get to activate, if I remember rightly. I danced around by round scores, I'm afraid, but essentially Widow and Domino were holding the flanks. Wolverine did try to get in, but Thanos just pushed him away with the Mind Gem and Comet Portal. So that was going into round 3, Medusa, Beast both KO'd. And also by that point, I was able to score the researcher on the evacuation point. And in round 3, he was also not helped by, he got really unlucky on his portal teleport rolls to try and get characters where he wanted them, allowing me to just put Wolverine, Domino, and Black Widow all on one flank, kind of out of the way. Round 4, was able to KO Domino and Dave's Wolverine, and that got me the win. I certainly enjoyed it. He seemed to enjoy it in the moment, and I think I definitely had the advantage going in, playing Black Order on that Crisis, at that threat, into X-Men, all of that. But dice were definitely an element. I rolled really hot that game.
Always helps,
But yeah,
and especially on something like Black Order, where
absolutely.
the dice can really
Yeah,
hurt you.
because say Thanos, Thanos is an attrition piece. He's very dice dependent. He doesn't have any ways of re-rolling or anything unless you got Zemo or something in there. Sometimes he does nothing. That game, he was consistently putting out 3-4 damage of every strike.
Unfortunately, Anth lost his game, which meant we, as a team, lost 2-1. So end of round 1, we were 0-1. So moving to round 2, we then played the good, the bad, and the average. So this was Manny, Christian Sales, and Mick Rod. So I ended up playing Manny, who is, I think, the owner of Borders and Swords. Definitely somebody who works there. I think he's the owner. Really great guy. Spoken to him a couple of times when been down there for other events. It was great to play against him. He was running Defenders, Doctor Strange Defenders. Now, he hadn't played that many games, and unfortunately, my Criminal Syndicate can be quite brutal. Yeah, so this was one where, unfortunately, it was a little bit brutal. So we got Deadly Legacy Virus and Gamma. Now, he picked Gamma, which I think was his first mistake, because I kind of went through what Criminal Syndicate did, and I think he heard me, but I'm not sure he fully understood me. And he ended up going with Hulkbuster, Wong, and Doctor Strange with, I think it was with the Time Gem, which threw me a little bit because not what I expected. Great to see Hulkbuster on the table, all nicely painted up. He'd had it done with LEDs, so the LEDs were coming through the kneecaps,
it looked great,
eyes, etc.
It was brilliant.
Yeah, he sent his Hulkbuster up my left to go take one of the legacy viruses, which was a bit odd because Hulkbuster was what I was worried about. I wasn't particularly worried about Doctor Strange. Definitely wasn't worried about Wong, and he kind of took him away from the Gammas, which was fine by me. I had Toad on my right to go get that legacy. I then had Taskmaster, Mysterio, and Kingpin through the middle, and Black Cat slightly to the left, kind of between them. I think he had priority from memory, and he sent Hulkbuster up the left to go get that. I then went up and got the other one with Toad. I don't think he then took the middle, and I went and took the middle. Doctor Strange was a bit of a pain having the 3 activations. You can't do that anymore because the time gem has changed. But I think I kind of came away from that going, I quite fancy giving Doctor Strange for the time gem a go. That seems quite good fun. 3 activations from him, but never got the chance to do that, unfortunately.
But it is no more.
Yes, yeah. It was quite a short game. I think by turn, I don't have photos before this, but by turn 3, I don't think I'd even got rid of the viruses at this point, but I was up 12-4. I managed to... Oh, it wasn't Taskmaster, apology, it was Hood. Just looking at the photos. I managed to get the back one by sending Toad. He like I say, he kind of had Hulkbuster out on the left doing what Hulkbuster did. Black Cat went and then stole his legacy. Toad went up and took the back Gamma, so I was scoring 6 points a turn on the Gammas with 1 or 2 viruses. And, Hulkbuster was just out of it too much. He didn't manage to daze Black Cat, and they managed to daze Hood. Doctor Strange did. I think I kind of went into it thinking, fine, we'll just have some fun, because, Manny said that he didn't play a lot, etc. And I think end of turn 2, I had 2 of my characters dazed, and I kind of thought, well, actually, this isn't gonna work. It was one of those ones where, unfortunately, I needed to kill the game early because I wasn't going to win on attrition. Again, Hulkbuster, Wong, and Doctor Strange constantly healing, etc. There was no way I was going to win that in attrition. So I had to go for it, which unfortunately meant that the game itself was over far too quickly. It finished 23-5, which was unfortunate because, it could have been. Manny was clearly a fun player. Like I say, it just ended up in one of those situations where I kind of had to kill the game off early, or else there was no way I was going to win it. I was going to end up with next to no characters. Yes, I probably, if I'd tried to, could have taken out Wong, but I just don't have the firepower to take out Doctor Strange and or Hulkbuster, especially not in defenders. Didn't take Helios lasers, which I was surprised by, but I think he just wanted to throw Hulkbuster around. But when he had three characters and it was Gamma against Criminal Syndicate, it was only ever going to go one way, which was unfortunate. But I think overall we had fun. It was just short fun as opposed to a long, close game. How did your game go?
So my game was against Christian, and I won 19-11. He was running Asgard. He had priority, and we were playing Intrusion Going Across City and Deadly Legacy Virus. It was another really fun game. Thanks to Christian for that. Great opponent. So I was playing the same team as in the last game. I forget his exact team. It was for Angela, Valkyrie. He had Voodoo and a 2, which I don't think was a coin. Maybe it was. Anyway, he didn't have Enchantress, which obviously, big whatever. But
eyes lit up when you saw that.
On Virus, yeah. There was a bit of a mistake round 1, which was absolutely fine. He was priority. He moved Angela up to the middle, picked up a Virus, went across, picked up the other. There wasn't any way of getting the extra power onto her. We both just completely forgot it, and then it's quite funny. Kind of almost simultaneously, we remembered the extra power to interact with your second or third Virus, kind of like, later on in the game. We just decided to play on. It so much had happened. It was inconsequential. It was a completely honest mistake by both. So
it's always difficult when something like that happens.
Exactly. Yeah.
2-3 turns away.
Yeah. Never mind. It was a really fun game, and who knows if it would have changed the outcome. But it is what it is. We played on. We had a fun game, and it was an honest mistake by us both. So she moves up. This did leave her open to Thanos' trick, so Thanos pulls her right in, and Corvus stays to round 1. I think I did have Proxima pick one up and Okoye pick one up, if I remember rightly. He scored all the secures and the third cure round 1, because I did, to sort of get that, dazing Angela. I don't think anyone moved up, kind of, really off my line. So yeah, he did get ahead of points, and that was kind of a theme. Although I did win 19-11 for a large part of the game. We'll get to that in the end. You might have guessed it being Virus, but for a large part of the game, I was, really quite concerned that he had it because of the lead he had in points. Top of round 2, KO'd Angela, and then I moved up the board, and he then got this really big spike turn. He dazed all my cure holders. He got more portals. So by this point, he was really quite far ahead in VP. I'm afraid I don't have it written down, so I can't remember the exact score. And round 3, I had messed up priority. I'd done 1 daze too many, which is a bit of a black order problem. But anyway, so he was able to sort of carry on that hurting me for that mistake. By round 4, I had managed to get some KOs in, so I was, getting a few points there. But it was still something like 10-4, if I remember right, going into round 4, or the end of round 4. So, he had a big lead. Corvus was dazed in round 4, but I did have field dressing, unusually. So I field dressed him, and I was able to daze Valkyrie, who was holding 2 of the viruses with that. Now, I did have to lose priority to do that, and I kind of accepted that. I knew it was coming. It was a choice I made. In the end, it did pay off. Round 5, Valkyrie paid back the favor and KO'd Corvus in one. She got a real Valkyrie spike with Dragonfang and Warrior of Legend and all that. Picked up the 2 cures that Corvus had dropped, and then so he just had, by this point, Voodoo and Valkyrie both flipped, and I'd lost Corvus and Proxima. So then, anyway, final round, Thanos was able to go through a portal, and he got the dice he needed. He KO'd Valkyrie, and he was able to pick up all 3 of the cures, score me the 8 points, which got me the win. It was a kind of a real nail biter. As I've said, I didn't really expect to win it. Round 1, round 2, round 3, it didn't look like it was going to go that way. But Virus does always have that potential for that last minute swing. It was a fun game, came right down to the wire, and I think we both kind of made some good plays, some good counter plays, and it was kind of just a fun smash in the middle as well, which is always nice to have. So yeah, great game too.
Yeah, I remember coming across and watching the end of that one, and you sending Thanos through the portal. It seemed like you were in control at that point, and you didn't need to do that last bit. And then I was like, why has he done that? And then when you dazed Valkyrie, I was like, okay, but that doesn't gain you anything because Valkyrie was out there. And it was only at that point that I realized Thanos already had the 2. Yeah. So pick it up ends at that point. It was like, oh, there you go. I can see where that went. But yeah, it looked like our game obviously finished quite early, but yours seemed a real nail biter. I popped across a couple of times to see how things was going, and then right near the end. Unfortunately, Anth lost game 2 against Mick and his Brotherhood. I think from speaking of Anth, that was quite a close one. That finished 18-14. We did get the win. So that put us on 1-1 as a team. Went into lunch. There was pizza. Always good. Anybody organising events and unsure what to do, just do a big Domino's order. Big
pizza order.
Can't go wrong with that. So that was excellent. And then we went into round 3. Now, round 3 was against Hull's Angels. A really good bunch. To be fair, had quite a good chat with those guys. There were quite a few teams from Hull. They said they'd come across.
It was probably almost a quarter, third, something like that, of the total team, wasn't it? Yeah.
Which was great. Great to see. And they said that hopefully they'll be able to come up because they didn't do many events actually in Hull. So hopefully they'll be able to come up to some of our northeast ones at some point because that would be great to see those guys. Really good bunch. Just looking at it here, Ant ended up playing Dave Hunt, who was running A-Force. I played Michael Giblin, who pulled out Dark Dimension, which was interesting. And you played Carl Walker, who was playing Web Warriors. I've never played Dark Dimension before. Managed to dodge it all these times. And I must admit, it was a bit odd because it kind of came out and I was like, what does your stuff actually do? Because I'm not really sure. I was slightly concerned because, like I said, I hadn't played it before, and it's always difficult when you haven't played something before. You're not really sure what it does, and you're always kind of half expecting a gotcha moment. We played Research Station Attacked and Demons Downtown. Now, you may notice and it's a spoiler for the last game as well, all my games, I ended up with the extracts. Now, Criminal Syndicate should want secures. I think I won 2 and lost 2 priorities. I just found that quite often, I think it was because of the way we did the team tournament, people didn't stack things. But I found most opponents, when I won priority, had extracts, had secures I liked. In that situation, as a Criminal Syndicate player, because at that time you could pick, going forward it's not going to be the same, and it's probably changed the way I do things. I knew I always have either Research Station or Deadly Legacy. Even if I discard one of those, I'm still going to have the other one. So yeah, I kind of played 2 Research Stations, 2 Deadly Legacies. It was odd that I was always picking extractions. I think often people win priority and automatically pick secures and say, right, I don't want you to have secures, you go get extracts. And actually sometimes it's better to try and go with extracts because Criminal Syndicate have got those 2 solid extracts that they're so good at. If you let them pick their secure and you can go with an extract, then, it's just something. Obviously, now the way things have changed, unless we get a third Criminal Syndicate style extract.
You can deal with content herbs pretty nicely.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of it. Probably where I'll end up going if I go back to Criminal Syndicate, but yeah, it does. So that's what we ended up playing. He was running, as I said, Dark Dimension, and he had Iron Man, not Hulkbuster, but normal Iron Man, Corset Iron Man. The big man himself, Big Daddy D, Iron Fist, Lockjaw, and he also had Black Widow. But looking at the photo, I don't know where he deployed Black Widow. But he definitely had her. So that was his team. And I was running Taskmaster, Lizard, Kingpin, Hood, Mysterio, and Black Cat. I've taken Hood quite a few times, but never actually run him. I was quite impressed by him overall. The healing really helps. It was interesting running him. But essentially, we're just fighting down the middle. There's nothing else to it. But I actually sent Black Cat out the right. I sent Taskmaster out the left, because I kind of wanted to. I just didn't want to just plow through the middle against Dormammu and just let him blow me up. So I wanted to have some options to come in. Also, I found with Demons Downtown, putting too many on there means you've got lots of incinerated characters, and that's never a good thing. So it kind of ended up as a bit of a scrum in the middle. Like I say, Black Cat did go slightly round the side and hid behind some terrain, to the point where both of us forgot she was there until the last activation. Taskmaster went up onto a building on the left. Dormammu sat himself in the center along with Iron Fist. I got the Researcher turn 1, because just purely by count as 2, so I was able to move that. I then got it turn 2 as well, because Black Cat came in and stole it near the end. So going into turn 3, it was 2 to 8 to me. Then, obviously, Dark Dimension, the way they work, they've got lots and lots of power. And it came down to a crunch moment where I think he'd managed to daze Kingpin, and he was looking essentially to finish him off. He did Helios Laser with Iron Man, obviously had excessive amounts of power across the piece, and I think he rolled 23 dice. And we took a picture of the result. So this was into Kingpin, and this was essentially to finish him off. And of the 23 dice that he rolled, I think he got 5 hits and a crit, and that was it. I'm looking here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah, 7. There was such a groan when that happened. I think 14, we all felt for him, didn't we?
14 of 22 were blank. He had 3 or 4 skulls in there, but yeah, it was. Kingpin was gone. There was nothing I could do about it. And in the end, based on, I think he had cover, he had reduced it by 1, he rolled quite well for his defense as well. He was incinerated, but he still managed to do it. And overall, he did 2 damage. So I'd taken a picture of that as well. Like, he was flipped, Helios Laser, this was going to take him out. And at that point, if he takes him out, I lose my bonuses. It would have been a struggle. Unfortunately for him, it just fluffed. I was able to block a few, as I say, got some cover, etc. And then I was able to basically heal him up with Hood and take him and put him on the back point. And I think he basically sat there for most of the game. It allowed me then to go and take the Researcher and put it on the back point. And at that point, it was 15-2. And I knew that in the next turn, I was going to get the 2 points anyway because of the fact that the Researcher was on the back one, based on the way it went. So we played it out just to see how it all panned out. I'd got rid of Iron Fist. I'd also killed Iron Man by this point. He had the Doggo, Black Widow, and Dormammu left, and that was about it. And yeah, that finished overall 20 points to 4. It was a lot closer than 20 points to 4. As I say, if the Helios Laser hadn't failed massively, that game could easily have gone the other way. I didn't really know what to do with Dormammu. I kind of ignored him and just went for the other pieces and thought, fine, you've got one that's doing a lot of damage, but if I take out everybody else, you can't score as many. And yeah, it was a bit of a slogfest in the middle. There were lots of dazed people, I managed to KO quite a few of his, which is unusual for the way I play Criminal Syndicate, but I was just forced into that point. Really good game, really good opponent. Like I say, really unlucky on that. I think made a couple of puzzling decisions with Dormammu, but I don't know Dormammu well enough to know whether or not there were alternatives. But overall, he was just unlucky. It was just one of those ones where, at that point you kind of think, well, it's not necessarily game, but his best chance to win just went out the window at that point, which was,
Yeah.
as I say, sometimes the dice do that. So, another really great game, another blowout for me, and this one definitely was a lot closer than the score suggests. I think, again, with counting as 2 in the middle when he didn't outnumber me, just meant that's the way it went. How did your game go?
So I was playing Carl, as you said. It was a really fun game. A bit of a weird board because it was we were actually joking before the event, if you remember, Martin, that Magneto would love this board. It was giant sort of ruined ship, sort of,
Yes.
old dockyard, I guess. And
Yep.
It was a bit of a weird board, and that definitely had an effect on the game. But great opponent. Weborius, playing Weborius, Miles Weborius. Crisis was Riot, Sparkover Extremis, and Alien Ship, 20 Fret, and Web Warrior Priority. So, he was running Miles, ASM, Gwen, Moon Knight, Venom, and Toad. And I was running Thanos, Time and Mind, Corvus Reality, Proxima, and Zemo. Round 1, a bit of kind of moving people around, first few activations, and then I pulled Moon Knight in and dazed him. Wasn't the happiest about that. He wasn't my preferred choice for the first days, but he was the one that presented himself. So, he was the plucky volunteer that got Corvus. Zemo, I ran up the flank and I decided to try for the core. Now, this was a big mistake. The reason I did it, I knew that Web Warriors, he could pull me in, all of that. I was kind of hoping that, okay, fine, you're going to get Zemo, you're going to get the core, but it's going to take you 2 rounds. I was kind of thinking of Zemo's rerolls. If it can just last even a round, I can kind of do what I need to do on this flank, and then I can mothership over and be in quite a nice position. Zemo did get the call, got pulled in by Venom. ASM kind of moved across to go for him as well, and he got dazed in 1. So definitely a mistake. I think there was something in there. I don't think it couldn't have worked, but it was a mistake, absolutely. Round 2, this is where the terrain comes in. Was kind of trying to decide what to do with Mothership. I really dislike for backorder playing on D that I much prefer B's as kind of that, 4-point secure setup. And Corvus was in a bit of an awkward position. And I thought, right, well, Mothership, I'm not going to be using it now to switch sides in quite the same way. So I thought, right, well, okay, I'll just, use it to get Corvus where I want him now. A tactics card played is better than one of your hand, I often think. So I went for it. But it was actually pretty awkward because of the terrain and where, I forget whether it was Thanos or Proxima that I Mothershipped into, but whichever it was, the bases and the terrain, it just was all a bit awkward. So I did KO Moon Knight, and I think I dazed Toad, but it kind of, round 2, I think, is where it fell apart. That Mothership was a mistake, looking back on it. And also, I got a bit unlucky in that Thanos and Proxima decided to both use them for a bit of attrition, and they both kind of whiffed that. They both took 2 attacks to do what I wanted them to do. In fact, I think Proxima didn't even do it on 2 attacks, meaning that I couldn't then move them onto the secures. So actually, round 2, Carl scored everything. I scored nothing, and that was the big swing that kind of sealed the game, really. Round 3, Corvus got all webbed up, and if I whiffed in round 2, it's nothing compared to the whiff that Carl had. Round 3, Miles, he got 1 maybe. No, I think Miles only got 1 damage through on Corvus on the all webbed up turn, if I'm remembering rightly. Having said that, then Corvus dice betrayed him. He rolled 3 or 4 shields. When he went to attack Miles again for the KO, didn't get it. So Miles was standing there, Corvus was standing there, both feeling a bit like lemons, I think. And I was left 1 power short for all you've got. So I wasn't able to get Miles off the table, KO him. Amazing Spider-Man came in. He whiffed on Corvus as well. So, Corvus all webbed up, and with all the extra dice and all that, he was, at the end of round 3, he was still healthy with 3 points of stamina left. Dice were weird this game. Round 4, did some killing, got miles, typical Black Order stuff, but that round 2 swing, it had just got way out of hand. Corvus didn't do enough, he didn't get miles and ASM, which was possible, but it didn't happen. So as a result, Venom with the core and ASM were able to score 4 points, and that sort of got it for the webheads. Really fun game. I definitely made some big mistakes round 2, live and learn, and I think Carl played it very well. He was really tight on where he wanted to be. Kind of did a really Venom 4 threat, kind of just sat at the back. You might think it's a waste, but he played it really well. So hats off to him. And yeah, another fun game. So thank you, Carl. 17-11 loss to the Black Order.
A bit of a spoiler here. There's a recurring theme. Unfortunately, Anth also lost again with his X-Men. I don't think that at this point, I think it was becoming clear that they weren't doing what he wanted them to do. So he lost against Dave Hunt, who was running A-Force. So we're 2-1 down, or 1-2 down, depending on how you want to look at it, going into the 4th round. And we played against Glorious Purpose for round 4. So Glorious Purpose contained Dave Amos, Tim Marsden, and Ben Cox. We rolled off, and they were laughing. Dave was their captain. He seemed to be able to roll really well for the priority for the sorting out who played who. But he was like, after that, all my dice rolls have been rubbish. And I can confirm that was true because I then played him in their game and he had terrible luck. So I ended up playing Dave, who was running Web Warriors. Tom, you played Tim with his Sam Spam, and then Anth played Ben Cox with his Criminal Syndicate. My game against Dave was a bit of a blowout. It was really unlucky for him. We ended up basically playing Deadly Legacy and Spider Infected. Yeah, it was a really funny one. The way it set up, I was able to take the middle and the far right. No, sorry, I took the middle and the far left Legacy Cure. He was running Miles, Quicksilver, Shuri, Venom, and Gwen. He had Quicksilver out on my left. Basically, I had to do something to pick it up, so I went with Black Cat near the end. It was a bit of a standoff. I'd gone with Black Cat at the end, and he had the Team Tactics card. Can I borrow that? So he moves once, needs to do the attack. All he needs to do is generate 1 power from that attack, and then he can play, can I borrow that, and steal it off me. He failed to do the damage, which meant he failed to get the power, which meant he couldn't do that. So I had priority. Turn 2, I run Black Cat as far away from Quicksilver as possible. A couple of other bits and pieces moved around. I managed to, with Enchantress, steal the Legacy Cure off, I think it was off Ghost Spider, and pull that in. It might even been, he had Moon Knight as well, apologies. It might have been Moon Knight, I can't remember. And I ended up basically with flipping 2 of the Spider portals and getting all 3 Legacy Cures. I had 2 of them on Toad, so I think I'd passed 1 across to Toad, and Toad had stolen 1 off somebody. I was quite comfortable where I was. What I didn't see, though, was... and then Black Cat was near Toad, but the way it'd gone, she didn't have enough power to hand it off to Toad in turn 2. So I knew I needed to do it turn 3. I had priority going turn 3. I was comfortable. What I hadn't thought, though, was that at this point, Quicksilver had enough power, move, then use his long move, which then got him into range to do the attack on Black Cat, which at that point he had no power, but if he did 2 damage, that would again generate enough power to then steal it off me. So at that point I was like, that's not good. But I was like, I wasn't overly concerned because I thought even if he does that, Black Cat can still go back across because he couldn't then move, steal it back off him, bring it back, and then hopefully survive long enough for Toad to steal it off her. Again, he rolled terribly. I think he did 1 damage, which gave him 1 power, which again meant that he was 1 power away from having enough to steal it. Top of 3, I handed it off to Toad, at that point, I had enough points then. I think it went to 18-3. Again, it was a blowout win. Deadly Legacy, it is what it is. I'm not a big fan of it in certain circumstances, but it is just so good for Criminal Syndicate. Probably, I wouldn't take it in the one day as at Bearded Card Trader, but when it's a team one and you're limited with what you can take anyway, it just seemed to make sense to take in this. Again, I had Toad who can steal it off his own people, Black Cat Enchantress who can steal it off other people. I always feel confident playing that, unless you're going to take two and run them into the corner. I'm pretty confident I can do that. So it was a bit of a funny one, and I know Dave was a bit, and rightly annoyed, because he had two really good chances to do some damage with Quicksilver and steal it. Both times failed, just purely on dice. It was really unlucky. I still felt relatively confident, even if he got it, I could go back and get it and, do what I needed to do. It just would have taken longer, and the game would have taken a lot longer. I think we finished that game. I think that was the start of turn 3, where I just moved them on to Toad. I couldn't let it go any longer because, as I say, at that point, Quicksilver's bearing down on Black Cat, and Black Cat's about to die, giving up. And then, if she gives up at that point, Quicksilver's got 2 long moves to go into a corner. So it was a bit of a funny game. Again, kind of. I think one of the things about Deadly Legacy with Criminal Syndicate is, as you said on your game, when you drop it, there's a disadvantage to one person picking them all up because they've got to pay more. With Criminal Syndicate, you don't, because you're just passing them around. So you just pass it around as you would do, which is always a bit of a... Yeah, there's a bit of a feel bad there. So that was a bit of a blowout. Again, it was one of those ones where I kind of felt like I had to do it, because otherwise, if I don't do it at that point, the game can quite easily just get away from me. But it did make me feel, going forward, to be more cautious around Deadly Legacy Virus, because it can, like I say, it can give away a bit of a feel bad when you just do it that way. But I mean, I'd managed to get, I think I was scoring 3 to his 1 most turns on the other bits. So, as I say, at that point, it was 10-3 at the end of 2, and then I just burnt them to go 18-3. Before we get on to yours, just to build the anticipation, and unfortunately lost to Ben Cox, who was running Criminal Syndicate. Whether or not we made it to 2-2 or finished on 3-1 was all down to your game. So
Indeed.
Tell us about your game.
Well, so my game, I think we were all a bit tired by the end, and absolutely, Tim was a great player, and he had a very finely tuned roster. I think whichever of us went into him was going to have a tough game. It gets to priority, I win it, sees that he has sword, and just thought, no, I've got no answer to 14 in this roster because of the character restriction, and the fact that that's kind of meant that who I've had to give away to yourself, Martin, and Ants, didn't have the answer to 14. So I'm going secures, and really I would have wanted the other way around for this matchup, but anyway, it is what it is. Avoided sword at 14. So we ended up playing Alien Ship and Demons, and it was 20 fret. As I said, I had priority. And Tim ran Sam, Vision, Voodoo, Luke Cage, if I remember correctly, Iron Fist, and War Machine. I'm going to apologise because I wrote my summary for this game a couple of days after. I wrote all the others kind of on the spot, so apologies to Tim if I forget any details or get anything wrong. It's not intentional, it's just my shockingly bad memory. So, round 1, kind of, fairly what you might expect. He's doing stuff, kind of shuffling around, being very careful. He has played Black Order, so he's kind of aware of what Black Order does. You really know that, not just kind of the sort of cursory, oh yeah, Thanos pulls people in, Corvus kills them. He knew all the Rangers, so he's being very careful to make sure that I was going to have to really pull Thanos out to pull anyone in. So he was doing that while I was pass. And it gets to the point where I have to commit, so I activated Okoye, and she just kind of stood on the back demon portal. Not ideal, but wasn't ready just to chuck Thanos into the middle. Next activation, I did have to chuck Thanos into the middle. So I went up and I pulled Iron Fist in, thinking, well, if I can get rid of the Iron Fist to stop him from activating either Corvus or Thanos, That's going to be nice. So Thanos pulls him in. And then this was, definitely kind of a mistake in that I decided with my final action to do a strike into him. He heroes behind it, and Thanos did a bit more whiff, and he chucked Thanos away. So Thanos was right out in the middle of nowhere by this point. Corvus and Proxima do their stuff, but, and this is kind of, I think, what did in many ways win Tim the game, he got Vision moved up and did a beam into Thanos, just into Thanos, really spiked. I think he got something like 5 or 6 damage through, after all the invulnerability and everything. And he just decided to go for it. And he played All You've Got, and he dazed Thanos round 1, which is obviously huge because it turns off the leadership. Well, no, you do have a leadership on Thanos' flip side, but it's rubbish. It turns off the good leadership of scoring VP for KOing. So, by this point, I knew that the game was going to move really tricky. He had a huge numerical advantage. I'd lost the sort of benefit I get for going attrition, so I was going to have to get through all of his characters to try and get something out of this. Round 2, I think I decided. Again, apologies for Tim for writing this up later. Anyway, whatever the outcome was, Iron Fist survived. Again, really big. And basically, for the next few rounds, it kind of ended up being this sort of fight between the middle demon portal, whatever it's called, and the one on his side of the board. I was really trying to get Sam, trying everything I could, and he knew that it was really important to keep Sam safe. At one point with Mothership, I was able to get to Sam, and he remained alive on 1 stamina left, which was big. If I'd got him, then I think that would have definitely helped to get me back into the game. Neither of us were kind of interacting with the Kree rubble score. Is that not the scrolls? No, that's, yeah, anyway. So that, neither of us really interacting. I think around round 4, I decided, no, it was round 3, I decided, right, well, I need to score some points here, without my KOing VPs. So Okoye started to do a bit of a dance. I'll move up to the middle, check for the core, no, move back to the back portal. And I did that, I think, 2 or 3 times. Eventually she got it, and Voodoo Avengers assembled up, and, just, no thank you. You're not having that. Okoye. Tim played it really well. He was getting quite thin on characters by the end, and we timed out. As it happens, unfortunately, I lost. So unfortunately, we as a team went 2-2. But was a fun game. Really kind of, tactical game. Great experience. Lost 10-7. If we'd had more time, if we hadn't timed out, if this was a kind of a game without a tournament round limit on it, I think I would have been able to power through him. Because by that point, he kind of played all his tactics well. He didn't have any more tricks. I think I would have been able to do it. Maybe not, but I think that was definitely a feature. But no, it was a good game, and it does show that Black Order they are undoubtedly tough. But if you can get Thanos or Corvus down really early in the game, then you've got a good game into them, definitely. So yes, that was my game 4.
Well done. So, as we say, that meant we finished on 1-3 overall. Now, Longshanks, because...
Sorry, 1-3, yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether or not because of the way Longshanks kind of went wrong halfway through, or whether or not this was always the plan, but essentially there were 2 events in Longshanks. One was for the teams and one was for the individuals. So, as a team, we finished 12th. Overall out of 16, so not great, but not too bad. It is what it is. I think we all had fun, and that was the main purpose. I think
Absolutely.
By the end, I think fallen back out of love with X-Men, which
definitely.
Fine. It was kind of an experiment. He kind of did it last minute. Oh, actually, this will be a bit more fun than Web Warriors. I think had he had the choice again, we would have gone back to Web Warriors. But as I said, we weren't in it to win it. We were in it to have some fun. And I think most of us, most of the games were fun. And that was the main thing. So the top 3, however, was the Reverse Oreo, the Bold and the Beautiful, and RichMid Gaming. So Reverse Oreo won overall, and that was Aaron, Elliot, and Ron. That was the third member of that. They went 4-0. I think most of us could have predicted that before the event. And then we had four teams on 3-1. So well done to those teams.
Absolutely.
I think team events are always great. Something I always wanted to do in AOS. I think it's much easier to do it in MCP. I know there's talk of other ones like a Six Nations style event and other team events happening. So definitely be up for that. I mean, we've done 2 online before this one and thoroughly enjoyed all of those. It's great just to play different people, play it in a slightly different way. I managed to play 3 new people out for the games on that day. I'd played Dave Amos once before down at Board and Swords, but still, they say get to play different people. It's always good. So overall, excellent event. Well done to Rich for running it. Well done to Board and Swords for hosting it. Definitely, if we get a chance, we will come down and do another one. So thank you very much, Tom, for being on.
No, thank you for having me, Martin. And yes, just to echo everything you said there, thank you to Rich and to Board and Swords and to everyone else who took part.
Yep, and I suppose to all our opponents as well. Thank you very much for putting up with us. As I say, unfortunately, after that, I came home and ended up in bed for 2 days and then in hospital for 3 days. And then, that wasn't good. So that's why this has taken so long. We will be doing another one, as I say, for the other events we've done recently. Anybody who is looking to stock up over Christmas on their MCP stuff, check out our sponsors, Blackgate Games. So blackgategames.co.uk. Go check them out. Good discount on all your MCP needs, models, core set, rulers, dice, etc., scenery. So thank you very much to them for continued support. And until next time, if anybody wants to catch up with you, Tom, are you on any of the socials?
I am not. I'm a right Luddite. So ping Martin and he can ping me.
Fair enough. That's fine. I am at Martin Swafield on Twitter and on Instagram, I believe. And we are Tales of War Games on YouTube. So go check that out. There's still quite a few good painting videos up on there. We have tried a couple of times to do a battle report and failed miserably. But in the new year, we are definitely going to try and do some battle reports for the YouTube channel. We've got some other exciting things happening, hopefully, in the new year. So stay tuned for that. And thank you and good night.
Good night.